Hi, book club members. I'm Jen.
And I'm Carrie.
And this is Warhammer 40k Book Club, where we read from a crag. This is episode number 38, and we are reading Ragnar Blackmane by Aaron Dembski-Bowden as part of the Space Marine Legends series. Yes, it's old. Yes, we're just getting to it. Don't give us any slack.
Well, I mean, it's not that old.
2018, isn't it?
Oh, crap. It is that old. It's 2015. Never mind. I thought it was 2017.
It's wrong. Very current.
Anyway. It is within this decade. All right?
Fair.
Yes.
We posted several questions to ourselves and our readers on our website, WH40kbookclub.com, and we encourage participation in our discussions via Twitter, YouTube, our site, or Encrypted Vox channel. Spoiler warning, if you somehow haven't yet read Ragnar Blackmane, go read the book, check out the site, and come back to this podcast as we'll be talking about the book from start to finish in great detail.
I mean, we'll sit here and wait for 2 hours, because that's about how long it'll take you to read it.
Pretty much. Okay, so I really liked this book. I loved this book. But one of its selling points was that it was really short and sweet. It did not overstay its welcome at all.
Oh, I mean, it had a story to tell, it told it, and it got out. Like,
pretty much.
All books should be like this, and not only that, like, okay, so it's over 200 pages, but we got, like, big print that's widely spaced as well, so.
It's also small. Well, it's about the size of a paperback, I guess, but usually the hardcovers are taller.
Because the paper's thicker, I think.
Yes, there is that too. But, yeah, I did have that moment when I got to the end and was like, oh, breezy and lovely. I think it actually is, like, just 202 pages, too. Yeah, it's 202. So, but it was, I loved that he clearly had, like, he wanted to characterize Ragnar, he wanted to progress them forward towards the fall of Cadia, and then we're out.
Yeah.
He also, so let's talk about what are the parts that stood out to you, because if you're anything like me, there were, like, so many that stood out.
There were, and did I write any of them down? No, I didn't.
I didn't either. I was just like, oh, I loved that, and then I moved on with my life.
There was there's some I was like, I need to write that down, because there's so many things that Ragnar Blackmane brought up, especially in the conference with deciding what to do with this wayward flesh terror ship.
Mm-hmm.
Because they were all... I like how he just threw it back in the Space Wolves' faces about that they're acting no better. And
right.
We're all supposed to be brethren in a way, like cousins, we're all supposed to be family, and then here we are, we're just stealing something from them. And I like how Razor Tongue was like, it's not stealing. Like, okay.
Well, right, because it's abandoned.
I mean, this is like the same argument that my brother-in-law would give me about downloading movies from torrents, like movies that were in theaters. He's like, well, it's not really stealing. I'm like, yeah, it is. But he was like, he had all these reasons why it was not technically stealing. Mm-hmm. I was like, dude, I don't care. You're still stealing. And it's the same way here. And Ragnar Blackmane would not let that go. It was just such a great moment that he was so ready, because especially with a group of people who don't like being told no and don't like being told that they're wrong, he had no problem just being like, you guys are hypocrites. So I was like,
and that was
like, yes, the Space Wolves have a history with being hypocritical, and it's so refreshing to see this young upstart come in and be like, why you got to do what you do?
Those lines I really liked. It was on page 134. It was the only thing that I like dog-eared slightly. It's when he's talking with the chaplain Scareth of the Flesh Terrors, and the chaplain of the Flesh Terrors says, how do you celebrate yourselves as hero even when so much Imperial blood is on your hands? Not quite so, friend, but how do you always believe you were the only white in a galaxy shaded gray? And I liked that, because the more you read about the Space Wolves, the more you see that they remind me a lot of the Salamanders in that they want to help people. And their first thing is protecting the Imperium, and they don't have any patience for any of the bullshit. Now, We'll talk more about a lot more about the flesh terrors later because I have very strong opinions. But I liked this concept that it is kind of true that the Space Wolves, they know that they're loyal. They know that they care about the Imperials. And really, that makes them the goodest of boys. Like, I like this idea that the Space Wolves are basically like, well, obviously, we're unquestionably good.
Right.
Everybody else, maybe not. Maybe a little questionable, but not us.
Yeah, we've done literally nothing wrong. In all these tens of thousands of years of existence, we have not done anything wrong or wayward.
See, because I'm a big Space Wolves fan, I'm like, yes. I mean, there was the one time that they killed one of the Grey Knights because, they weren't really happy with what the Inquisition was doing. But you know what? Maybe the Inquisition shouldn't have sucked so bad.
Okay, well, in that example, I'm on the Space Wolf side. 100%. But, I go back and forth with the Space Wolves. And the thing is about them is that they're just a arrogant bunch.
They are very... Well, again, I think it's because they have that unquestioning, well, obviously we're good.
Right. It's just, and part of it, kind of goes back to, honestly, Prospero for me. And again, I can't blame Leman Russ for this, because why wouldn't he take Horus's word at face value? But same time, as I'm also kind of like, why didn't you just call Dad to verify? Just, you sure you want me to kill him? And I couldn't even tell if I don't even remember if he told him to kill him or if he just wanted him just to kind of bring him in. But it just was also... So
Dad told him to bring him in. Horus was like, no, what he meant was kill him.
Kill him. It's just...
They're so easy to confuse.
Right.
Bring him home, kill him.
Okay. All right, so my big thing is I can't remember this guy's name. This one Space Wolf. Oh, there. That guy.
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm.
He was a fucking hypocrite. And,
oh, yeah.
And so that has always kind of stuck with me about the Space Wolves. He's like, no, the way we handle the warp is right, not the way you handle the warp. Now, did they have something there? A little, yes. But it was so just because, but at the same time, there's like ignorance there. It's just so hypocritical. And especially when you get into he's talking, to Ahriman, and Ahriman's talking about his familiars and all of that. And he's like, that's just wrong. And then Ahriman looks into them and sees wolf spirits. And it's like, really? So they're wrong, but you guys are cool. And that's kind of always been the thing with the Space Wolves, is that they've just...
Ahriman was using, his spirits were demons.
But he didn't know.
Anyways, that's a whole other conversation.
My whole thing is that they were very big on we have the grasp on this, and therefore we are going to tell you what you can and cannot do. I mean, at least I totally understood Mortarian's side of the whole thing, but just because he hates the warp, and yet anyway. Another thing with that.
Thank Typhus for that.
Right.
So, but focusing on this one, there's so many little, I really love ADB's turns of phrase. Right. There are a lot of just ways that things were worded in here that I really liked. It was just from start to finish a super enjoyable book.
Yeah, 100%.
Really. So let's talk a little bit about Ragnar, because Ragnar, the person you all came here for, what did you think of Ragnar overall as a character?
I kind of went back and forth on him, because he was kind of a hothead, especially when you find out that the Dark Angel he killed, he did it out of blood rage. He got mad that the Dark Angel won the duel and just couldn't have that. And he was 100% in the wrong there, and he was. And he couldn't really admit it, although he did apologize, which was huge for the Space Wolves. Probably my favorite scene in there was when Nalfir, even though I didn't like Nalfir at all, of course, until the very end when you find out the truth and you're like, oh, god damn it, ADB, why do you do this? Why do you make this despicable character? And then you find out that that's not even who they really are. But when Nalfir just went up to him and just bitch slapped him across the face. Like, you done fucked up, bro.
Well, he deserved that.
Oh yeah, he did. It was just one of those things where it was just like,
yeah, oh dang. Well, and he was absolutely right. Okay, so once you realize what's going on and that he killed him in a blood rage, I was like, reading the book, I was like, oh, he did not. Because my first thought when I read the book is I was like, do they like kill, like, is this going to be the book where Ragnar Blackmane dies and they're going to have to retcon it? Like, my first thought was, that can't stand. You can't. And so, fortunately, they paid that off really well. And I did like...
Yes, they did.
I liked that you got to see that growth in him, right? Because you have the hothead in the beginning who straight up murders a Dark Angel because he was pissed he lost. And then in the end, you have the guy who can take a step back and say, I'm not killing you.
Mm-hmm.
We need to grow up from this.
Right.
Not that we need to stop dueling each other, because that's a very important part of the Dark Angels and Space Wolves history, but just that he had that, not doing it.
All right, I do have to say, just you talking about that, maybe remember something. You know, when they are all talking to Ragnar about their traditions with the Space Wolves, so with this honor tradition with the Dark Angels and their honor tradition with this, and, you know, their traditions with speaking at the forum, and like, I was already having Fiddler in the Roof in my head.
Oh, yes. Yes, very much so. Why? I'll tell you. I don't know. Exactly. They have so many traditions, and so it's one of the things that I just love about the Space Wolves in general. I love their whole shtick and their feel, and like, I love one of the phrases that I loved most about this book was so-and-so as called by his kith and kin. Every time they did that, Razor Tongue is called by his kith and kin. I was like, yay. Like, I just love their traditions, and I love that Ragnar kind of they all are kind of firebrands in their own way, right?
Yeah, I think that's part of being a Space Wolf. Which
makes it so funny that they have all these traditions. Because they're like a band of firebrands, and yet they have traditions. So it feels like some of them are breaking, like, I think they all break a tradition at some point. It's just a matter of who's breaking what. So I liked the idea, and to your point, I like the idea that I've done this horrible, dishonorable thing, and then when they find the ship, we need to return this ship. So again, that kind of...
So I'm going to ask you a question. So when they did this little conference, and Ragnar was like, so why can't we? And they're like, you weren't there. Well, why don't you just educate me? And I was totally expecting, because I don't like the Flesh Terrors, and I was on the Space Wolf side on this, like, yeah, fuck those guys, whatever. I was expecting this horrible thing for the Flesh Terrors, and yes, the Flesh Terrors did do horrible things, but...
To be clear.
Right, but when the Space Wolves were like, but we wouldn't give them back their bodies. Like, seriously? Seriously? Are you really going to play that game? You guys? With your wolfen?
Yes.
You're going to play that game?
But again, that goes back to the whole, we are white. We are
nothing
good.
Wrong.
Right, exactly. Like, yeah, we've got this wolfen curse, but we've got that under control. But these other guys, they're shady. They have a curse, and they don't. Although,
if they had nothing to hide, they wouldn't have gotten so mad we wouldn't get their bodies back. I like how Ragnar was like, what? Like,
what sense does that even make?
Right.
But to that, I mean, on one hand, so okay, I was conflicted. The boulder was conflicted, because on one hand I was like, hello, hypocrites. But then on the other hand, I was like, I mean, to be fair, they basically are Khornate berserkers.
Well,
who happened to fight for the Emperor. They just call Khorne the Emperor. They were slaughtering innocent civilians. So on one hand, I'm like,
I know this, and this is one of the many reasons why I don't like the Flesh Terrors. The other reason is because they're a watered-down chapter. But the point is, you know how I feel about the non-legions. Sorry, that's just... I know
Gabriel Seth would like a word, madam.
Yeah, I really don't care. They were horrible. 100% they were in the wrong, and I totally understood why the Space Wolves fought them. But when you get Seth and Logan Grimnar there to be like, can you stop this shit, please? Let's go in peace.
You want to talk about unstoppable force meets immovable object. I'm just trying to imagine those two in a room. Talk about two large egos and unpredictable natures.
Honestly,
also,
I imagine
temper.
But I imagine them both coming into this and like, what is this? You know, like they're watching a bunch of unruly kids.
Actually, yes, I could also see that. Them showing up being like, you called us in for this. I could absolutely see that too. Honestly, it could go either way. But yeah, when they said that when Ragnar was like, you didn't give them back their bodies. I also had a similar moment when he's talking with the chaplain, and the chaplain's like, oh, we've sent emissaries. And yeah, we got their heads back. And Ragnar's like, right.
But at the same time, like at first I was very angry about that. But then the more I thought about it, I was like, but we don't know what, we only know that side, that they got the heads back. We have no idea what happened.
Right, and the emissaries, to be fair, it's a flesh terror emissary, so it's entirely possible that they showed up talking smack.
Or maybe they decided they were hungry and look at this tribe.
Again, it could go either way. What do you think of modern Ragnar sitting on Cadia? Like with the whole tunnel scene and them fighting their way, just throwing themselves against body of the cultists, and how did you think of him as a modern leader, since the other stuff was kind of in the past?
Right. I didn't really think very much, on it, because I was kind of enjoying that part just because it reminded me so much of Justin Hill's book, Cadia Stands, because it was the Space Wolves that actually saved that one soldier there. It was by accident, but he's just like, he put her on a ship and was like, later. Whatever, I'm going on my way now. But a lot of stuff that he was doing, some of the orders that he was giving, is like, yes, that happened in Cadia Stan, so that's kind of cool to kind of see all that. But he's he's a space wolf. He's always going to be hot-tempered. But as we saw him throughout the book, he started off this hothead, and it took going through a poisoned jungle to kind of calm him down.
Nothing. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a second, but I really liked that because I was like, well, that's certainly an attitude adjustment.
Right.
Nothing like, we come from a death world. Yes, darling, but you come from the Antarctic. You are now in, I guess, the Amazon?
That's what I was thinking.
Cambodia? Like you are in,
you know what?
rainforest.
You are in a combination of the Amazon and the Outback.
Pretty much. Everything there wants to kill you and hates you. And I liked when they said that, when they were like, even the trees are trying to kill us.
That made me laugh so hard.
I thought that was so funny. So let me ask you this, because I think this is probably one of the most telling things about Ragnar. At least I thought so when you get to the end. Why do you think he missed Razor Tongue most of all?
The only thing I can think of is maybe just missed having that voice of just playing devil's advocate, just to play devil's advocate in his ear to make him rethink things.
He had that with, was it Alfred or Alfred? I can't. He had the bard at the end, and I can't figure out how to say that name.
Oh, yes.
But he had that bard. And I think this speaks a lot to Ragnar. So similar to what you said in the beginning, where Nalfir is just this kind of obnoxious character. He clearly set that flesh terror loose on Ragnar, which classic space wolf, that we need to teach him a lesson. Unleash one of the flesh terrors on him. The fact that was a suitable punishment. But he acts like such a jerk, and then when he's like, yeah, Yeah, the Jarl pretty much told me to do it from the day one because he knew that, he recognized potential in you. The idea that Razortongue would commit to that he was willing to step into that role of teacher, but a specific type of teacher.
And to let himself be so hated.
Yes.
I mean,
willing to be the villain.
I mean, that one elder that came to talk to Ragnar, and he was just like, well, you have everyone mad at you because half are mad that you didn't finish the job and half are mad that you tried to kill a fellow brother. Like, wow.
Right.
Although it's like, well, to be fair, Nalfair really did start that.
I did. It explained this so much, and this is classic ADB too. Remember when he's talking with Ulrich, and he's like, he unleashed that flesh terror on me, and Ulrich's like, did he? You didn't mention this. And Ragnar's like, oh, I didn't feel the need to mention it. And Ulrich's like, okay. I loved Ulrich. Ulrich was probably my favorite. Such a great character. But I love the way ADB handled him.
He was the one who shot off Nalfir's hand, didn't he?
No, that was Hrolf, wasn't it? I can't remember which one. That scene was hysterical.
Yes.
When he shoots the hand and Alpha's arguing and he's like, you got another one, I can fix that problem. It's like, I love the Space Wolves. They're so wasteful. They just kill perfectly good Space Marines because they were mouthing off. Well,
I mean,
anyways.
I do have to admit that the Space Wolves, they have their fun moments. Like that was one of them. I think now probably one of my favorite traditions is that they all have to fight each other to determine who gets Lucas the next year. That just cracks me up.
Okay, and so I think, you know what? I'm actually really glad that we read Lucas the Trickster before we read this book, because my next question is, what do you think of the bards in general? And the idea that the Space Wolves constantly need these naysayers. So they love to have Lucas the Trickster, not as a bard, but as a trickster. They like the person who's willing to tell them to stop putting on airs. Mm-hmm. And to take a step back. They like the bards. They like the characters that are willing to say, this is a stupid idea.
I don't know what I think of the bards, because I don't have too much familiarity with them. I mean, we have Nalfir, and then of course there was Prospero Burns, because they turned that regular human kind of in a bard into a bard. I think it's very interesting. I mean, it kind of, of course, it goes back to some Viking folklore and all that, and honestly, the idea of having a bard goes all the way back to the Greeks, if you want to get really specific.
Very much so.
I really don't know what I think of them.
I really like them as a concept. I like the idea, and because after I just made this huge thing about how they're like, we are the only white, good, unquestionable people in the galaxy, I like the idea. Their bards are... So they have the person who plays the devil's advocate, but they also kind of play their own little Jiminy Crickets. This conscience that will say, are we doing this? I'll voice the unpopular opinion right now. I will question my leader. But then also I will remember these stories and I will entertain people and I will do traditional bard things. But I like the idea for the Space Wolves that it's so important to have a character. And again, that Ragnar, that's the person he missed the most. Nalfir, I didn't get the impression that Nalfir was like some great warrior. I mean, obviously he was a good warrior, but not like, the man you would have as your second.
No, right. But I think, so Dante kind of had this too. Mephiston has always been the one that's barking in his ear. It's just like, that's dumb.
Bring us a chalice and we'll talk about how dumb this is.
Sorry, I was just having a Teen Titans reference go through my head. There's this episode where Raven is mean to everybody and her dad gets onto her about it and she's like, I'm not mean, I'm mean. I am nice by being mean. That way that they don't do things. She goes with the Beast Boy. She's like, stop that, that's dumb. Like, that's kind of what I was thinking, with some of this, but I mean, Dante, that was very important to Dante because Mephiston would argue with him all the time. At the same time, Mephiston has one of his closest friends is with him at all times, who is constantly telling him, what the hell is wrong with you? Like, you need to stop doing this. I think it's just something that, in a way, kind of brings them back down to level. Mm-hmm. Because, these guys, they're essentially superheroes in a way, but they don't always do superhero-like things. And sometimes they need that extra reminder that, the road is paved to hell with good intentions.
Right.
And even though you may have this wonderful intention in mind, but what if we look at not doing that? How would that work? And have you really thought this through? You just really just kind of challenging them. And it's like in this really weird way, Uriel kind of had it with Learchus.
Right. He did. Well, but those are characters who, I mean, you can name them, right? I get the impression that there are many, many bards throughout. So I like the idea that, obviously these people, these main characters that we follow from a narrative perspective, it's good to have that. But I like the idea that this is a position within, they actually have a naysayer position within their legions, which I thought that was very interesting. And I think that's a really neat thing about them. Now, they still have this tremendous amount of arrogance to them, but it's kind of a neat thing. And again, just the fact that Ragnar is I really need my Jiminy Cricket around still, a person who's willing to commit to the role.
Right.
So,
see, I guess I never really thought of them that way. So, but now I'm running through Prospero Burns in my head, and I can't remember the name of that human, which is stupid because he was the lead character in the book.
The main character.
Yeah, the main character. But I can't
believe you can't remember his name.
What's his name?
It's so obvious, I don't need to tell you.
Okay. But
that one guy?
No, that one guy, yes. But
Dan Abnett insert.
He actually, yes. I could see that 100%. So he's just the Dan Abnett insert in this. But there was this one wolf that kind of got possessed. But then when he got some clarity, he was screaming about Horus, that Horus is turned, Horus doing these bad things. And that human bard was I think we need to listen to this. Something about this is triggering something. Yes. And he was protesting, don't kill him. We need to listen to it. And they were all so certain that they were right. And they killed him. And then,
spoiler alert.
Right. Which I know that whole thing, yes, that is a whole Dan Abnett insert to be see, like we do all along, and we're just trying to warn you. But because, even, not that we even needed that because Lehman Russ figured it out in the end anyways. He's kind of doing his walk of shame as he's leaving. It's yeah, we can't tell any of this, so you have to go to sleep now. We're going to put you back in the tree, and we'll get you later. Yeah. Or never.
Smell you later.
Right.
So, okay. I would say that the majority of the story takes place in Cadia, but then probably the closest second is them on the Flesh Terror's homeworld. Right. And we talked a little bit about the homeworld itself, but what did you think of the Flesh Terrors versus the Space Wolf?
I think it's interesting. But oh my God, it goes back to werewolves versus vampires. Are you going to be...
Why?
Are you going to be Team Edward or Team Jacob?
Obviously Team Jacob in this case.
Actually, I was always Team Jacob, but that's a whole different story.
Okay, really quickly, I could never be Team... I could never... So when, all these other adult women, when Twilight was a big thing, and they were I'm Team Jacob. I used to babysit for my best friend's kids, and Shark Boy... Every time I looked at Jacob, it was Shark Boy. And I was there was this movie that I call them my nieces and my nephews, they loved. It was called Shark Boy and Lava Girl. And it's Jacob's first role. I can't think of the actor's name right now.
Taylor Lautner.
Taylor Lautner's first role, he's like 11 or 12 in it. So I'm like, this is not a man, this is a child. So when everyone's like, I'm Team Jacob, it's like, you cannot be Team Shark Boy. He is a child, and that's weird.
To be fair, I read all of the books before I saw any of the movies, and I saw 2 of the movies, and I was like, I am done. I can't believe I've wasted my time even further with this crap. Now, actually,
we laughed hysterically through them. Like, we watched them and we made it drinking games. We laughed so hard.
That'd be pretty good. Actually, last time I saw Taylor Lautner, he was in Grown Ups 2. He was a frat boy lacrosse player. It was hysterical.
That fits.
Yeah, it was hysterical. Yeah. Anyway,
he's adorable. But anyways, yes, obviously Team Jacob. Although, can we discuss this for a second? That he looks vampiric.
Well, yeah. I mean, the ears are kind of pointy too.
Yeah, but like the way that they drew, I was like, that's less saber tooth and more vampire lord.
Well, I think it's the black hair. I think that doesn't help.
It's the teeth. For some reason, they look more vampiric to me and less wolfy. Even though I totally know that they also have the extended canines.
Right. Except that I think
the ponytail is doing him no benefits.
Oh, the top knot. I like the Abaddon look there.
The palm tree.
But the difference is that so theirs are constantly fangs. And
yes, that is true.
The Blood Angels are retractable because, of course, they are.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever. But what I think about them versus, again, so it is vampires versus werewolves, but at the same time, fuck the flesh terrors, man.
They're so in a chapter, and I know that they're their own chapter, but
right.
Just under the whole Blood Angels chapter, in a chapter of melodramatic people, they take the cake. And frankly, I really liked the captain up until the point when he just massacred all of the recruits because he's like, oh, these guys suck. And he goes through and he kills them all, and he's like, not a single one of them was worth it. They couldn't even block me. And I'm like, you're a space marine, and they're just regular unaltered humans. Like, also, I don't think they were... I don't know. I found that to be so off-putting. Like, I was like, I like this guy. I like that. No, never mind. Damn you tricky flesh terrors.
That didn't surprise me. And that's... after reading Angels of Darkness and seeing what the Dark Angels put their finalists through, I mean, it's either you're a Dark Angel or you're dead. I mean, there is no wrong way through it. And here he decided that they weren't going to cut it, so might as well just kill them all.
I just always find it very off-putting. But yeah, when it happened, because I was like, oh, he seems reasonable, a little melodramatic, but oh no. Almost fooled me. But there is this, they're so fatalistic. And I did find it interesting, though, how he's like, yeah, we're just going to be losing more people on Seth's crusades. Because, you know, Seth is trying to find victimless crusades for them. Good luck.
Oh, Seth.
You know what? He's a complicated man, and no one understands him.
You know what?
Except Dante.
Yeah, I actually do like Seth. He seems to be the only reasonable flesh terror, and he's snarky. So of course,
he is snarky.
I'm gonna like him, but I just okay. I will say the flesh terrors are above the blood drinkers because let's be real. And what was that other chapter that was literally slaughtering innocent people just for funsies?
Oh God!
But then they got devoured.
Yeah, they got devoured. Seth was talking with them down in the tunnels,
yes,
right? And the guy was just, I can't remember their name either. It wasn't the Angels Luminous, but it was...
It doesn't matter.
Something with blood or flesh. But yeah, I found the chaplain very interesting in this book. I mean, I liked that he found it interesting that he so grossly overstepped his bounds.
Yeah.
I found that
very interesting. I was like...
His whole explanation of why they have a captain of the 10th company, even though they don't have 10 companies. Because it's tradition.
Yeah, I kind of like that when Varane was like, "That's dumb." He's like,
Right?
Then he's like, "Well, I'm a captain, so I outrank you. I'm gonna go get them now."
I did like that when he's like, "I'll be back." I thought that was interesting. I thought it was very interesting when he finds them still alive and he's like, "Whoa, like, I was not expecting this." And
but how many Space Marines have they put on that walkabout?
right. Again, these are not necessarily the most conscientious people.
Right.
And yeah, I loved the scene with the dinosaur or the dragon. I thought that was super interesting. Nalfer goes out like a damn badass,
Right.
and I like that his lie becomes true. Tell him that I went out fighting something bigger than me.
Yes.
Like,
yeah.
I loved that.
I love that. Yeah.
I did. That was the part where Varane grew on me. When he sees Nalfer standing off against this thing, and he's like, "I've got to help," and Ragnar kind of gives him the, "Okay, whatever's going on here, I will respect it." That was when I was like, "Aw, there's hope for you guys."
Just every couple of them.
Like 1 in 100, because we can't say 1,000. They don't even have 1,000.
So we have Varane and Seth, and so okay.
Well, there's 400 guys, so if there's 1 in 100, there's probably 2 other who were
Okay.
decent sort of fellas. So long as they're not drinking blood. They're coordinate berserkers, just so we're clear. I feel as though the Flesh Terrors, like, they just haven't gotten, like, they still think they're worshipping the Emperor, but it's really Khorne, and they just haven't gotten the memo yet. Khorne's just like, "Call me whatever you want, I don't care." Like, it's still skulls for the skull throne.
Yeah, and lots of blood for the blood god.
Mm-hmm.
Although, I don't know, he may not like that if they drink it also.
But to your earlier point, I thought it was an interesting dichotomy to pit these two guys against each other as having, because again, they do both have the secret curse. And yes, the Flesh Terrors obviously take it to the extreme because they always do, and they all, like, you know, their percentage of black rage is really high, and blah 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 blah. It was an interesting thing of, and it made me really like the Space Wolves more, and it made me want to like show this book to the Inquisition and be like, "See, these guys are fine." The idea that they have this dark curse, but it's not as hindering, and they haven't fallen into woe is I,
Right.
like the Flesh Terrors.
I just kind of like it that these 3 chapters that have all these incredible secrets and would kill anybody to keep them secret are constantly at each other's throats. And I'm talking about the Flesh Terrors, the Dark Angels, and the Space Wolves.
That's a little interesting, isn't it? And I did like at the end there. Okay, first off, so I'll get my first statement out, and then I have to say out one of the things that stood out to me that was hysterical. But I did like at the end when it's the Flesh Terrors watching the Dark Angels and the Space Wolves going at it, and they're just kind of like, cool. He's at first when he's like, "I have no idea what's going on."
Right.
And okay, like everybody else is watching, so I guess I'll just watch too. I do like when he's like, "Yeah, it was really artful how you dodged getting your head cut off, slipping on the ice."
Yeah, I laughed at that.
I laughed pretty hard at that one. But you are correct. At the end there, it was 3 chapters who really don't want the Inquisition looking in on them.
No. Which is why I find it so fascinating that the Dark Angels constantly try to get in the Space Wolves business. And I'm pretty sure they do it to throw the scent off of them, get the Inquisition to look at the Space Wolves. But at the same time, it's like, bro, like, you got your own skeletons in the closet. You don't want to go pointing out other people's, because they're just going to come find yours.
I actually think the Dark Angels suffer the same problem the Space Wolves do. Casper Hauser.
Oh, okay.
Casper Hauser. That just popped in there. I can't believe you didn't remember that, Carrie.
Oh, okay.
And it was spelled dumb, too. I think it was like Casper with a K, and I think it was like
because the K is extreme.
Extreme. Anyways, that's like my favorite gag in Harold and Kumar Go to White Castle. So, I just referenced that in our podcast. Anyways, so Casper Hauser. The Dark Angels, I think, also have a little bit of, well, we know what our secrets are. Our secrets are in check, and we know that we're loyal to the Emperor. But the rest of you bastards are questionable. So it's funny to me that the Space Wolves and the Dark Angels are the ones that have this long-standing, we have to duel feud. And the Dark Angels subplot feels particularly interesting because I actually had to get online to double check this. This book takes place in 999 M41.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same time that the Dark Angels are dealing with the Wolfen issue.
Okay.
So that makes this a little interesting. The fact that, meanwhile, back at the corral, the Dark Angels are going hog wild on the Wolfen and killing space wolves left and right. And meanwhile, over here, you have this, you will duel us. Oh, okay. So, like, on one hand, I was like, it's nice to know that no matter what else is going on in the universe, Abaddon sieging Cadia, and Cadia about to fall, you guys are destroying the space wolves left and right, we still must duel.
Yeah.
Don't monkey with tradition.
Now, I kind of hope when Lion and Lehman come back, that's the first thing they do.
Oh, you know it will be. Actually, so I could very much see when they come back, and the chapters are like, yes, we still duel each other every time we see each other. I could see the Lion being like, "Are you kidding me?" And Lehman Russ being like, "Excellent."
Right.
I could see it either way with the Lion, because the Lion, and they deal with this a little bit in the Lehman Russ Primarch novel, which is just fabulous, and I recommend it to everybody. And that says a lot coming from people who know how much I hate the Horus Heresy. They deal with in several books how the Lion's kind of like this, like he finds it to be kind of silly, and they deal with that a little bit in the Primarch book. That even he was kind of like, I'll allow it. But yeah, I could imagine him coming back and being like, why?
Now? You think this is a good time to do it now? And Lehman's like, yeah!
That's actually exactly what happens in the Unremembered Empire. One of the Space Wolves goes up to punch him, and he's like, right now, right here. The Space Wolf's like, yep. It reminds me of that,
I'm gonna guess
Johnny Bravo episode. You and me, we gotta fight. I don't have anything against you, and I got nothing against you, but you and me, we gotta fight.
I just imagine that Lion backhanded that guy and be like, we good? Okay.
That's exactly what happens.
Oh.
And all the other Space Wolves are like, ah! Like, they remind me of the orcs a little bit, and they're just there for a good crumpin'.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter who loses. It was a good fight. Yeah. So but I don't know, it felt a little, on one hand I liked that, we don't monkey with tradition. On the other hand, I was like, a little callous. Like, sure, our brothers are off killing all of you, but pistols at dawn.
Well,
or chainswords at dawn, whatever they had.
This is what we do.
I did love the descriptions of them. They'd use the same, very similar to in Chris Wright's Primarch book too, which I know came after this one, but they describe the Dark Angels as being these very regal, consummate swordsmen, right? They're very polished and they're very studied and they look very fancy, whereas the Space Wolves are just barbarians and they're just going straight brute force.
Right, because I think they even mention in here about, like, we have no idea if they're even smiling or if they can smile or something like that.
Right.
It's like, yes, I imagine the Dark Angels being very bored of everybody in the room. Because if they're anything if they're anything like their Gene Father, they know best. And they know better than all of you.
And they're very aristocratic and knightly. They actually remind me very much of the elves, the Tolkien elves. very
yeah, I can
above
see
it
that.
all,
Mhm.
you know, very snooty. And this, it just dawned on me that this is like some 80s coming of age movie with like the aristocratic wealthy jocks versus the nerds or something like that, except the Space Wolves are definitely not nerds.
Are you trying to say this is like Revenge of the Nerds?
Pretty much, yes, where it's the preppies and yeah. But it felt kind of weird to me where I was like, are we not going to talk about the Wolfen thing right now? Is that off the table? They're on Cadia. It's possible they don't even know. Like they get back and they're like, oh, come on.
The 13th
Just deal with that guy.
The 13th Legion came back? Wait, what? Yeah.
Ruh-roh. I did really like the idea, though. I loved that ending when he was like, and so that brings up, why do you think it was so important to settle these two old scores in particular?
I don't know, but I loved it all the same. You know, ADB, he has a gift, and he really brought it out. And yes, I'm not about to say this, in the Emperor's Gift, that he mentioned something in the beginning that doesn't seem that important, or that you might forget about it because so much other things are going on, and then when it happens, you're just like, oh, we're going to go that way. Oh, okay. And it's just, again, it reminds me of To Kill a Mockingbird, because To Kill a Mockingbird, if you've never read it, starts off as something that doesn't make any sense whatsoever, but you totally forget about it until the end of the book. And like, I got choked up reading Ragnar Blackmane when Soriel stepped off the ship.
On one hand, I was like, what are the odds? But on the other hand, I was like, oh, thank God. And to your point, okay, so this is one of the things, and I know that we've been talking about this a lot. I liked it at the time, but as time goes on, the Spear of the Emperor just keeps... It is marinating so well in my brain. But that was another one, right? Where two things get mentioned very early on in the book.
Yes.
Why would you just send one guy? And also the Inquisition's totes trying to kill us, and you're like, even though at the time you're like, yeah, probably, you kind of forget about it, right? Like you're like, yeah, okay.
Well, it's not only that, but it's like the very beginning, you know, has the main character, and she's, you know, like writing in a journal, and she's using a name. You're like, I don't know who the hell this is, but you forget about that. Forget all about that until the very end, you know. And Phil Kelly kind of did the same thing in War of Secrets. You thought nothing of battle stations in the beginning. Nothing.
I still thought it was bad, lazy writing, because there's the one chapter where they're like battle stations, and everybody wakes up, and you're like, okay, that's like the most awkward cut between scenes I've ever read. And then you get to the end, and you're like, oh.
Right?
I felt so bad because reading the book, I was like, because it happens like twice, where you're like, this is just,
you know what,
lazy writing, and then you're like, oh, it's brilliant writing.
None of that fazed me, and I think I just play way too much like sci-fi space odyssey video game shit, because that didn't faze me. I didn't even notice it, and then when they said battle stations, I was like, wait. And I flipped back through the book. I was like, oh no. You guys are
ADB,
crafty with your own people.
ADB is very good about that, about where he's basically told you kind of what's going on here. And if you go back and reread, or like if you really think about the initial part, it is important tradition. We do not dishonor this tradition.
Right.
So the fact that it comes back in the end, but again, so the Dark Angel, well, do they really settle the score with the Dark Angels? Probably not. But the idea that it was very important that we make it clear that we're kosher with the Dark Angels and we're kosher with the Flesh Terrors. Now, in the context of Devastation of Baal, it feels more important that they would settle with the Flesh Terrors, because I think Ragnar had it right. The universe is dying. Bad stuff is coming down the pipeline. We need all the allies and the friends that we can get.
Right. I mean, and obviously just from the chaplain talking with Forain, talk about a dying out chapter. And yet they're...
Who's also going to refuse the Primaris.
Right.
I think they need all the allies they can get.
Well, maybe they just figure, well, we have the Blood Angels. We don't really need anybody else.
Dante thinks we're cool. Kind of. He really wishes we would take the Primaris.
Well, yes, because I think Dante actually sees the Flesh Tearers as, like, you know, the Blood Angels' children in many, many ways, which, you know, technically they are.
Mm-hmm.
And he just wants to kind of protect everybody. And then we just slaughtered, like, everybody else. But, you know, we got the Flesh Tearers, and he likes Seth. I think that's the big thing, is that Dante likes Seth.
Right. And I think, well, I mean, doesn't every parent have their favorite child? And the other ones you just leave for the nids to eat? I don't know. I have one.
Yes.
I have one child. I don't understand how parenthood works.
I really do need to pick one of mine for the nids to eat. I haven't done that yet.
I imagine it would vary from day to day.
It does vary from day to day.
And there's other times where you're like, I can just start over. Anyways, joking.
I may start telling them that. I'm going to feed you to the nids today. They're like, what are you talking about?
You're the nid sacrifice today. Oh my gosh. But I liked the idea that maybe they have more than one ally out there now. But for the Dark Angels, I guess that's just... Okay, look, there's no bad blood between us other than the bad blood that's already there and the whole Bolton thing. Anyways.
Yeah, we might have just, like, you know, sent all the Grey Knights after you guys. But, you know...
And then, like, massacred the entirety of your population. Massacre the entirety of the population that you recruit from, now giving you the same problem that the Flesh Terrors have, although the Space Wolves have accepted the Primaris into their heart and souls. So, because they've accepted Robbie G as the Emperor replacement person, I guess?
I forget. He has so many titles.
Like, so many titles. He's just Robbie Bobby. Anyways, they've accepted Robbie Bobby.
He's got as many titles as the Custodies have names.
Pretty much.
But
that is the legit thing. Or as many names as the Skander Kane has. Hey!
But he's our Robbie Bobby, and that's all that matters.
He is Robbie Bobby. So I guess it just dawned on me, though, that is definitely... And we talked about that after Ashes of Prospero, too, and what a huge problem that is. So it's very interesting that he would specifically bring them to be on friendly status with the other chapter that's having similar problems. And let it be pointed out that the Space Wolves have never really had... Nobody really knows what the numbers that they have, but there have been several books in which they mention that they don't have quite as many numbers as other chapters, which, if you can do some math there.
Which is kind of crazy, considering that they refuse to follow the Codex and divide up into other chapters. They're like, we're going to keep 10,000 people. Screw you.
I think they only have to. Also, they are accepting the Primaris. Like, I keep coming back to that, whereas the Flesh Terrors aren't, although maybe the Flesh Terrors will just have the Primaris forced upon them, and then it'll be like War of Secrets all over again. And that's not a good thing. Anyways. So, we have the settling of scores, and then we know from Psychic Awakening that after fighting Thraka, Ragnar becomes a Primaris. Where does he go from here?
I guess my next question is Logan Grimnar a Primaris?
I have to assume so, because they seem to be making everybody's favorite characters are Primaris.
Right, but I don't...
How convenient.
I don't see Dante becoming a Primaris.
I don't either.
And that's just because he's old.
I have to see if Logan Grimnar has become a Primaris, because the answer is I don't know.
Well, if Logan Grimnar, for the same reasons that Dante does not become a Primaris because of age, then I see Ragnar Blackmane eventually becoming the Great Wolf King.
That's always kind of been the supposition. I mean, ever since the William King books, it was always kind of the supposition that he would be the next Great Wolf. And unlike Cato Sicarius, everybody likes Ragnar. So it makes sense because... Oh, man, that would, like, really suck for Cato, too, because he was always the heir apparent, but now Robbie Bobby has come back, and I don't know. I hope it's Felix. Anyways.
No, Felix is a tetrarch.
Okay, that's a good point. But I like Felix, so don't take this from me.
I like Felix too, but okay, I want Marnie to stay where he is. And
Marnie?
yes, Marnie, we're that close, okay? And but you know, Kato, I think, grew on both of us after Knights of Macragge, and I'm really curious where Kato goes from here.
He has. I would imagine that he would also go undergo the Rubicon Primaris because.
Okay, yeah. Is he really going to let Uriel of the Fourth Company go through it? And
well,
not him?
Remember they say that they were working their way. I think didn't they say that they were working their way down the line, and that I think again, plot armor is in effect here.
Well,
if your name is famous and there's a character for you, you're now a Primaris. So, you guys, I'm still so angry that Pesanius didn't undergo the Rubicon Primaris. I'm really having trouble with this, and this is really dredging up some feelings for me. This conversation. I'm gonna be fine over here, I promise. Maybe. Anyways, is Ulrich gonna become a Primaris?
He's kind of old too, though.
He's like super old.
Like, I don't think he's Dante old, but not too far away from it.
No.
The only one who's Dante old is Robbie Bobby. And he was asleep for most of that time.
Yeah, pretty much. Which is kind of wild to think about.
Right.
But, so, actually, I guess let's broaden that. Where do the Space Wolves go from here? Because now we have read this, read Lucas the Trickster, and we read Ashes of Prospero.
So...
And the Curse of the Wolfen, and lots of stuff going on with the Space Wolves right now.
Since Ashes of Prospero took place after Curse of the Wolfen, I think we have to go from that point. I think that Lucas the Trickster and all that is going to be retconned. That's just kind of what I'm thinking. And I think it's because nobody cared about Lucas, or nobody does care about Lucas as much as Josh Reynolds did. Maybe somebody else will rise up and take over. I don't know, but I think we're going to go from Ashes of Prospero, and that's what I'm really interested when they come back from Prospero, because they all can't deny what they learned, how that's going to affect them in the future.
So,
especially since they still have a Magnus problem,
an ever so slight Magnus problem.
Mm-hmm.
He has a case of the Magnus. Like all of Fenris has a terminal case of Magnus. That's a good point. I don't know. Magnus is still obviously quite cranky. I don't know if maybe he learned the lesson that all he really needs to do is just show up on their planet, summon like 5 or 10 demons, and then the Grey Knights will just come and take care of the problem for him.
That's kind of what happened in Curse of the Wolfen, but...
Exactly.
And
that's what I'm saying.
He drew his sigil in the air, and it was like this, bat signal for the Grey Knights.
Yeah, and I mean, does he learn that lesson? Like, look, guys, all you have to do is drop like 2 demons on there and no more Space Wolves. Does he learn that? That's a huge problem for them. Obviously, they have this giant revelation that OBT dubs, it was Horus that told you to attack Prospero. They have the issue that the Inquisition is still very much on their heels. They have the issue that they're not totally kosher with the Dark Angels. Not totally. I don't know. I think
that's a lot kind of wrapped up just right in there. The Space Wolves, the Dark Angels, and the Inquisition. Oh my. All kind of in there, especially with, Robbie Bobby coming in and challenging the Inquisition the way that he has.
Yes, very much so.
Because they may try to go in there and kill the Space Wolves. I mean, they've tried it once before.
By the way, we didn't mention that. I did find it very interesting when they mention Inquisitor Jarl's daughter.
Mm-hmm.
How they're just like, yeah, we don't talk about her. Like,
apparently she turned traitor and some shit. Or at least to...
Well,
I mean...
Or is that their interpretation? Because, hey, look, you were with the Inquisition.
Well, we don't know what happened. We don't exactly know how she fell out. But you know how the Space Wolves roll. If she's Fenrisian, if she didn't vote in their favor, they're going to call her a traitor. Because, like, again, like with the whole flesh tears thing, look at how they painted that.
Right.
Whether they were right or not, it's still not painted totally not hypocritical. And it could be the same thing with her.
Right. Very much so. It really could be. But I found that interesting. So I feel as though for all the chapters, like we talk a lot about the Ultramarines. We have a really good handle on the Ultramarines. And we just had a conversation about this on our Patreon episodes where we were talking about like where are some of these chapters. I feel like after the Ultramarines, we probably have the best handle on the Space Wolves right now.
Yeah, I would say so just because, well, I mean...
And the Blood Angels.
Yes, because the Blood Angels, I mean, so what do we have? We've had, well, I can't really count Lamart because that was written so much earlier, but like we got Dante with Devastation of Baal. We know that there's Darkness in the Blood is coming out. Well, it's already out. You guys know what I mean. And so we already have all of that with the Blood Angels. Mm-hmm. The Space Wolves, we have Ashes of Prospero.
Right.
And the Curse of the Wolfen.
Mm-hmm.
What was going on there? The Dark Angels. Dark Angels. We have as much as the Dark Angels are allowing us to have right now.
Yes. Yes, I would agree with that.
And we have a huge handle. I think second to the Ultramarines is the Imperial Fists.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we have a pretty good handle on the Imperial Fists.
And they're still boring.
We have a pretty good side handle on them, I think, because we've never actually... Well, no, that's not true, huh? We did have that one book that we both keep forgetting. Anyways, moving on. I really like the Space Wolves. I'd like to see this plot progress for them.
Mm-hmm.
And where we go from here. I would like to see other chapters first, because some people also need their day in the sun. But this book, when I got to the end of it, I was like, oh man, I want more Space Wolves.
Well, yeah, I mean, but I think it depends on who writes them, to be totally honest.
Yeah.
I mean, I really like...
Not to put too fine a point on it, but
I mean,
yeah.
I really like how ADB writes the Space Wolves. I've now read 2 books.
I love it.
That he's written about the Space Wolves. I would like to see more from him. I mean, I didn't hate Ashes of Prospero. So, Gav Thorpe's always a good choice, as long as he doesn't make it like Indomitus. I mean, Chris Wright, you said, wrote the Lehman Russ novel really well. So he might even be like a great one to kind of bring more Space Wolves.
Mm-hmm.
And I would like to see definitely more variety. Because we are in it. I mean, as much as I love the Smurfs, and Robbie Bobby's my guy, I am getting a little over inundated with the Ultramarines. And I like taking breaks like this, even with a chapter that I'm not totally a fan of. I have to say, ADB is making them grow on me. Last 2 books have made me really kind of like them. But just some variety. Not only that, I need to see how they all are in this crazy post-Rift world, how they handle the Primaris. Lots of shit's going on, man.
So along those lines, though, that's our way to talk about the book that I have yet to pick up from my Games Workshop store. Our next book is Brutal Cunning, which I'm so excited for.
I cannot wait.
We are finally, not only are we taking a break from Spess Marines, we are taking a hard ride at Albuquerque to go and visit with the orcs. I'm so excited.
I am too, especially because it's written by Mike Brooks, same guy who wrote that delightful short story. If you haven't read it, that's where there's the warp, there's the way. If you haven't read it, go do the thing. You will laugh your ass off.
Can verify.
Yes.
Super funny. And you know what? Frankly, we've had a few dour books as of late. We've had a few serious ones. There were a few laughs in this book, but overall it was a pretty serious book.
Right.
I could use something funny and not just overall, in fact, because I think like the last really truly funny, laughed out loud was probably one of the Caiaphas Cain books. There are lots of amusing anecdotes in Warhammer 40k, but oh no, I take that back. Actually, it was the Cal Jericho book was hysterical from start to finish. I could use a good funny book. Also orcs.
Right. I'm gonna have to read most of this, I'm afraid, like out loud, so I can understand. Pick up this soccer hooligan talk.
So that's one thing that I'm a little concerned about because I'm still reading the books aloud while my husband is playing Crusader Kings 3. Think of me fondly, please. I am now Crusader Kings widow. I am still reading them aloud, and I'm a little nervous about that one because I'm like, oh, am I going to be able to do this? But also, I need to be able to understand it, so.
Right.
Probably. And they'll all have the same voice as the ones from Space Marine, the game.
Okay, they had...
Space Marines!
As terrifying as the orcs were in that game, and as many times as they killed me, because damn it, they just don't stop coming.
No.
They cracked me up the entire time.
Super excited for it. So that'll be our next book. Definitely pick it up and check it out and follow along with us.
Yay.
You want to take us out, Carrie?
Yes, I will take us out. So thank you guys so much for listening to our Warhammer 40k book club episode regarding Ragnar Blackmane by the wonderful ADB. Be sure to join us for our next book, Brutal Cunnin by Mike Brooks. We are an unofficial book club and not affiliated with the Black Library or any of its affiliates. You can find both the vidcast and podcast on our website, WH40kbookclub.com. If you like this episode, please like, subscribe, give a review, and all those things to the vidcast on YouTube or the podcast on anywhere you get podcasts. Don't forget, we also have a Patreon where we offer 2 different tiers of content for your viewing and listening pleasure. You can learn more about that at patreon.com/WH40k book club. Our site also has articles about our adventures and reading other Warhammer 40k books and short stories outside of the book club books. So please stay a while and read for McCrag. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.